Hello, once more to the Trickway with Grey Gamer, myself, Trev. Hello, welcome back, everyone. Bittersweet episode because it's the finale of season 3 of Picard, and it was so good. We didn't want it to come to an end,
Yeah,
did we,
we
Grey?
didn't want
Just,
it to
just
end
keep
up.
going. You don't need vacations,
Just keep
holidays.
lower. Yeah,
Keep filming.
I
Think
think
about
that was about as far as we can go because those old guys can't handle much more than that.
Well, yeah, like if they come back again in the future, it'll be Zimmer frames. Like, do you remember when the first Kelly was on
Mhm.
TNG, and obviously he was aged up a lot, but like quite a bit more to the point he's walking about in a walking stick or something,
Yeah, he was up there already though, so it didn't take much makeup.
you
But
know?
yeah,
Or you're
yeah.
thinking of Biff's father from Back to the Future, like the hoverboard thing or
Oh
the
right,
hover
yeah,
chair thing he was
yeah.
on, yeah. So the
Funny.
last generation. Um, yeah, it's bittersweet. It's our season 3, episode 10, titled "The Last Generation Review." It's like a two-part movie. This, Gray, safe to say, and it's the second
Mhm.
part. Our man, the Lord and Savior, no, not God or Jesus, Terry Matalis. It's a new religion. I'm calling it right now. He wrote and directed this episode as well.
By the
Um,
way, just to interrupt for a
mhm.
second, did you see the tweet that I think it was Terry that sent it out?
What one?
There was a shot of the couch, and Terry's sitting on the left, and in the middle is Walter Koenig, and on the right is what's his face that plays Shaw, and he
Yeah,
says nothing better than
eat
watching the
popcorn.
finale with Chekhov and Shaw.
They're eating popcorn. Yeah, I saw that. That
You
was
just see him
cool.
shoving the popcorn in their mouth.
Uh, nice one,
That
Terry.
was good.
Nice one.
That's great.
It's we'll obviously leave our scores to the end, but
Hmm.
this was not as good as last week's episode, and that's not a slight on it. It was just
Oh no, no.
last week was 11 out of 10 for Gray and I, and it was the best episode of Star Trek we've probably ever seen, or certainly up there. So how can you beat that, even in a finale? But it was still bloody good. Just a couple of nitpicks and one issue that I'll discuss at the end. So anyway, right. So as it's opening this episode, Gray, you've noticed this as well. I'm sure you'll appreciate this as
Yeah.
well. Not only, but normally you get that Star Trek, well, the Starfleet insignia, the Warp Delta, as it's called, and you get
Yeah.
whatever ship it is, in this case, the Titan,
Hmm.
warping around this thing to create it, and then it's the Star Trek music. But now, it's still the Warp Delta, but it's all like Borg fonts,
Yeah.
and
It's the
it's got
first thing I
Borg
noticed right away was
music.
the music was like real subdued, and I'm going like, I thought there was something wrong with my speakers. And I'm sitting there turning my speakers up, going like, "What the hell?"
uh,
Because I hear it just kinda going, "Woo," and I'm like, "What is going on?" And then I saw it, I realized, and I go, "Oh, okay, cool, cool,
yeah,
alright."
did you notice something else, right? Not only was it the Borg music, but there was some Borg music from First Contact as well. Don't know if you picked
Yeah,
up
and
on
and
that.
and also, I don't know if you saw it, but in that sequence, they actually showed the Borg cube, but it was only up there for, like, 2 seconds.
Oh, I missed that. Well done, mate.
Yeah, I didn't
Uh,
I didn't see it the first time. When I saw it the second time, all of a sudden I go, you blink and you miss it, and all of a sudden the cube gone, like that. It was just like
uh, yes, that's it. This is it. This is why we both do it, because I miss things and he misses things. And it was a nice start. It's off to a great start with that little intro there.
Mhm.
A nice touch from your man, Terra Metalis, aka God. Uh, Now, this bit is cool. That Gray admits he had to go back and check on this one. I picked up on it right away, which, considering this man's a TOS, he would win pub quiz TOS round, no problem over me, easy. And he had, safe to say, Greg, you were like, yeah, that could be him, but I'm not sure. I need to go away and check. I straight away, it's the president of the Federation. Um, it was, what was his name?
Anton Chekhov.
Chekhov. Now that was Anton from the Kelvin
The
Universe's Chekhov. Can't
Yeah,
remember his
the
full name. Do you remember it?
the actor that unfortunately died
Yeah,
in an
yeah.
accident.
Anton, whatever
Um,
his surname. Yeah, apologies, I don't know that.
yeah,
Um,
so they did a nice tribute by using the real
yes,
actor's first name.
yes. And to be fair, like, I don't mind that. Normally, anything to do with the Kelvin universe should be. I mean, I'm surprised Terry didn't fix that and burn that into existence, but it was a nice touch because the man passed away, so he deserves that. So his name's Anton Chekhov. He is the son of the great Pavel, of course. nuclear vessels and all that. And he's basically given a little speech about how bad things are at the moment, Grey, and invasion and all that. But something I said to you off air was that you noticed that I knew it was him because when he was not struggling to pronounce those stereotypical W's and whatnot, I could hear him at bits, but he wasn't as strong all the way through because it's supposed to be his son.
Right.
So, I mean, Walter Koenig was obviously going, right, let's dull it down a bit, but keep it there to show that it's still Chekhov's. And you noticed that as well, though, surely. Or maybe you noticed after it wasn't quite as thick as his father.
Yeah. When I back and listen to it, definitely not as thick, which would make sense because the son is not going to have the full accent necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that he can't pronounce W's. I think it's just really, really heavy stereotypical Soviet era accent. So yeah, that was a great touch as well to have him. We don't see him, we just hear the voice. So straight away, we've got two great starts to this, Gray, I'm thinking, and we haven't even really properly started the episode. Now, from the teaser trailer that Gray and I done a little video on, and thank you for the people that tuned in for that. Done really well. Picard orders the Enterprise D, aka Fat Boy. Not my nickname for it. Gray's fat. It's no one's fat. It's just.
I still love the heck out of it, but but everybody kind of call. They even made fun of it in this series. They did call it the fat.
Well, wait till you see what this fat boy's capable of, Gray. I mean,
hell yeah!
This fat boy's went on a diet. But yeah, it comes out of warp, and then it's the same great view. I noted this, Gray, and you can agree with this as well. You don't see the ship going to warp. Well, you do in the last episode, but it comes out of warp this time, and the camera's right in front of it, and you're like, where's the starship? You're looking under your carpet. It's not there. And then bang, right in your face. And I was like, this is nice. Terry has got the starship shots down to a T. He knows what we like, and the shots are beautiful, Gray. Starship porn all the way. I'm sure you're a big fan as well.
Also, by the way, on that whole scene where we see it pop in and they take the long view of it passing by the camera and then turning around, that scene normally would not have been that long. Usually they cut those scenes a little bit shorter, and this one was a long scene.
Cheddar cheese,
and they did it right, and they did it on purpose because they wanted us to soak all that in. And I just loved it. It's just like this, and then it does the turn, and then you see the 1701D. It was just
Hey, he makes a good point. The camera does pan perfectly from in front of it to around it, so that you can then see what the bridge crew are seeing, which is the big bloody red spot on Jupiter. And not only the Borg there, hidden a bloody transwarp conduit in the gases of Jupiter, and they're in the red spot. And Gray and I were talking about this because we are space geeks in general, especially Gray. And the red spot had been around for a long time. It's bloody massive. It could hold a few Earths easily just in that little spot. So they're like, where is it? The person whose eyesight potentially is a character could be the worst, Picard. But then again, he is Android at the moment. Sorry, I know we've forgotten about that, but it's a thing. He spots it. I'm like, they're not using sensors. I'm like, where's the Borg cube? And Picard's like, oh yeah, I can see it. Okay, right.
I think it was more this leftover Locutus stuff because he knows certain things, he still hears certain things.
No, but you didn't hear what he heard, kind of thing. They normally put that on if you. Yeah, but you of course you're right. He's got these things still in his system. So yeah, he spots it and they magnify. It's hiding in there. It's absolutely bloody massive, and I'll come to that in a moment. In fact, I'll just talk about it now. You've got an idea in the past of Borg cube scales compared to normal ships, right?
Right.
But now they've truly done it justice, Gray. You see the D up against the Borg cube, which is like half poking out, but it's like a souped up Borg cube. It's got massive antennas and stuff and structures coming out of it, and it looks massive. I mean, Fat Boy is not a small ship, but I need to stop calling it that. You've rubbed that against me, man.
The D
is a massive ship, one of the biggest starships that's ever been in Star Trek. But
one of the biggest ever made, too, carrying over 1,000 people.
And it's tiny compared to this thing.
You're thinking on the screen.
You're thinking it's going to get absolutely demolished, even if the Borg cube is low in power because of it. So I like that. Idea. And I don't know why they're in the red spot on Jupiter, but why not? Maybe it's less
I
dangerous.
I kind of think, at least from what I can tell, we find out as we get into the episode, excuse me, that there's something not right with this cube, and I think they needed to hide in there because they didn't want to be seen or have any problems
I needed to be in
or any
broadcast range as well, don't
complications.
they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they couldn't broadcast across the galaxy, so they had to be in some kind of relative closeness. So what's better than hiding in a big ass Jupiter? I mean, what you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, and the Borg cube
as
is,
big as the cube is, it's still tiny compared to Jupiter. So
of course, yeah, and that's why they couldn't see it initially when they came out of warp. Um, Now we go back to the assimilated Armada, Starfleet Armada, and it is still a sight to behold. I wonder how much those 2 episodes cost to make, Gray, because
probably more than the rest of the season.
yeah, the CGI is really. I mean, but I don't care. I don't care. It was beautiful.
You know what? That's smart thinking when you come to how you have to spend your money. Because if you're when they do these things and they plot out the entire season, you got to think of these things ahead of time. So if you want money shots, then you need to save your money for the money shots.
Yeah,
And that's exactly what they did pretty much. So,
yep. There was several episodes where there was very little or no CGI, and that was fine because the story was so good to carry it through, and then you're saving up the CGI money for a rainy day. And boy, did they deliver in these
yeah,
last 2 episodes. You see the Armada actually now firing space dock, and she is taking a pounding. I mean,
I'll say.
yeah,
I've
like
never seen so many red phaser fire beams. It looked like the whole screen was covered with a bunch of lines.
it was well cool. It was really, really, really cool. And the thing is, Gray hits the nail on the head. I don't think I've ever seen as many ships in one go firing, and they're firing everything. And it's back to the point I made last week. There's only so much even that space dock can take, and we'll
Right.
get to that later on. Space dock is giving it out as well, but I think it's obviously giving it out in a way to not destroy the ship because they know what's what.
Right.
They're just trying to disable it because you see a couple of ships kind of like rolling away, for the want of a better term, not blown up. So it's just about putting everything into defences for the most part. Now, Seven. This happens really quickly, Gray. Seven and some of the older generation, because not the D crew, but some of the older
Yeah.
fellas and gals left on board that
Uh,
are above 25.
yeah, I was gonna
Um,
say the semi-olders. What are they gonna call them?
the older
Yeah,
lot, the older lot,
the young adults. No, that's not even
the
good.
older adults,
The older adults. Yeah, there you
Um,
go. Older adults.
they retake the Titan bridge, and it seems to happen too quickly. It's not a nitpick; it's an observation. It happened a bit too easily, but it's partly because they come up with, I don't know if it was Seven or one of the other guys. It's a teleporting gun. I mean, literally, it's a teleportation gun. I
Right.
wondered why they were all buggering off to. See, when they get shot, I thought she was going to stun them, but I thought at first, initially, Gray, that they were all just beaming out before the shot hit them as like an emergency fail-safe thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Did you think
yeah.
that, or were you thinking,
That's what I thought at first. Yes,
yeah, so
but then I saw the timing was like spot on to when they were shooting. I'm like, what?
too good, wasn't
That's
it?
the,
Yeah.
listen. I thought it was some brilliant writing. I wouldn't have minded a little explanation behind how the heck they did that, but that's okay. It's science fiction. You got to stretch it here and there. Um,
It does. A big shout out to the cook, Gray.
yeah, I commented he was a little bit goofy. I mean, it was okay. I don't mind him being goofy, but he
That
was
was
going
funny.
on
I
a little bit.
like
He was
that.
going on a little too long about, well, my parents and
Hey, you would
shut
do the
up and
same.
sit
I would
down.
do the same. You'd be shitting a brick right now if that was you.
Yeah.
You know,
But it was more like, sit down. Okay. But the thing that I liked was Seven gave a really good rah-rah speech. She had to really get these people that
that was
didn't know what
good.
the hell was going on into action some kind. And she did a good job of that. She got them all rallied up, including the cook who was a pilot. So, okay. He had
Yeah,
talent,
yeah.
some talent.
Hey, like if you think about it, later on, what he does, and we'll touch on it when we get to it, he's doing an all right job considering what they
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
do. So, I guess it never leaves you. It's like riding a bike, piloting a starship,
There you
same
go.
thing. So
No
now
problem. I
here's
can do it tomorrow.
here's the interesting thing I touched on before that I'm going to go into a little bit more depth now. with the Cube versus Enterprise D. The Cube is only 36% operational. Now, I'm thinking, thank God, because A, it looks battered
Yeah.
anyway. B, it's hiding out, and C, if it was fully operational, the D, even fully powered D, stands no chance. It's just that's what
Yeah.
it was back in the day, and it's still going to be the case now. So
Right.
they level it out a little bit, which is fine. And this was interesting here. Data talks about how he's got this kind of new feeling, this emotion, and he thinks he hates the Borg. And I was like, wow, that
He was
is
even saying how like all the bad things they were doing and the suffering and he just had an remember he's just become human, so he's
a lot
getting
of stuff's new to him.
overwhelmed
Yeah.
with these emotions and he's not sure how to handle it or express himself, so he just kind of like bleh.
Well, he's not overwhelmed to the extent of Star Trek Generations, where he was needing about
Right.
5 Valium after that and an appointment
Right.
with the
He can
shrink
still do his
because
job.
he can still do his job.
Yeah.
He was a nervous wreck in Generations, man. I know how he feels.
Yeah.
Now the TNG crew have to split up now, which is a shame because I wanted to see Picard or Riker pilot the Enterprise later on for what we'll talk about, the awesomeness. But Riker, Worf, and Picard, yeah, they're all going to
Mhm.
go over to the Borg cube to try and find Jack. After the Borg cube lowers its defenses and fights them in, what did you make it up, man? I mean, how would you do that if you're a Borg cube?
The only thing I could gather from that from the rest of the show was the fact that the Borg Queen knew that Picard was the cutest,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to invite him in to basically hassle him, and tell
Or
him
get
like,
him on
hey,
board,
or,
get him
or
on
to get
board
him
with a
on board and
plan.
stimulate him as well, and then
Yeah.
they would have both him and the kid.
Oh, it'd be a perfect little family Borg, like
Yeah, but
royal
remember,
family.
she said late. Well, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but she did comment the queen like, Locutus is home. Okay,
Yeah, true. That is a good point,
but
mate. That is a good point.
but you're right. I thought about that at first. I'm going like, why are they inviting him? But
Yeah.
Picard seemed to know why. He didn't say it, but that look on his face
The,
told me that he knew what they were doing or why they were doing it.
the,
Whatever.
the Borg cube would normally. So Borg cubes shouldn't normally fire on you by default, right? Because if you're a threat, they'll do something about it. But they know what the D's about and the TNG crew are about. So you would think logically you would take out straight away. But I'm glad they didn't because we had the rest of the episode to go. Now, when Worf invites himself down with Riker and Picard, because Riker says, I'll go as well, we'll make it a twosome. And then Worf goes, I'll come along, we'll make it a threesome. And then I burst out laughing. I have a drink in my mouth. I'm at work. It went all over my laptop. Riker comments, do you hear yourself right now? I was pissing myself laughing at that. I'm assuming you had a chuckle at that. I watched that about
Yeah,
5 times, Gray, that part.
I kind of saw that one coming about a second before it did. Because as soon as he said that, I was already thinking it, and then Riker says it right at the same time. I was like, "Oh my god!"
See the humour
Yeah,
with Riker and Worf
yeah,
in this season, man. It's just been epic. They're like frenemies, and kind of
yeah,
way that they just butt off each other, but they complement each other so well. Um,
yeah.
that was a chuckle. So threesome ahead. They all beam down. And then Carter says it's been an honour serving with you as he leaves Enterprise. And I'm thinking, Gray, you obviously
Yeah.
get some thoughts on that as well. I'll let you carry on for a sec.
Well, to the way it seemed to me, because we had already talked a little bit about, well, could someone else die? And we all figured, all right, well, probably Picard was going to be the one that dies because he's pretty old, and it would make a good exit for him or for the character. So we don't really know. And then when he starts talking about going down there and it was a pleasure serving with you, I mean, he was already talking about this is a suicide mission. We probably ain't coming back.
Yeah, that's true.
So I just want to tell him, or at least at the most, he wouldn't be coming back, if not all three. So, and the cool thing was just in the writing, the acting, and in the camera angles, everything that was done, the whole scene was like so thick you could cut it with a knife, kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
They were just like, oh god, this could be it, man.
It's a
After all
great
these years, it's
it's a
caught up
great
with us.
analogy.
Yep.
Analogy and great acting as well. Like you mentioned here as well. It
Yep.
really, really was. Who said Star Trek actors couldn't act? Um, Not
Oh,
us
please.
anyway. So
Yeah.
moving on, we have Picard going his separate ways. It's they're splitting up again, even on the Borg ship, which strength of numbers and all that. Picard's going his separate way from Worf and Riker, and it was kind of a really sweet moment because it was
Yeah.
kind of thank you for everything you've done for making a grey, and Riker and all that's like anytime we'd always do this again. So it's like after one
Mhm.
emotional scene, we have another even more personal emotional scene. I'm thinking this is too much for me, man. Can we get into a fight now so I'm not so sad? you know?
But it was great because it made sense. Like he what do you call it? He told Riker, he says, "Listen, you guys can go on. I have to forget being your captain, and now I have to be a father." And it was perfect because that made total sense. Instead of just going like, "I'm gonna go run off from,"
Yeah.
he had the emotion going. He just said like, "This is, I have to stop being a captain. I'm no longer your captain right now. I'm a father. I've got to do this." And immediately Riker, being through the troubles he's had with the son dying and everything, he knows right away, and he just goes, "I know," and that was it. So they split up from that point, and it made total sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
It was a beautiful scene. And then the beautiful scenes then followed by finally Picard catching up with his son again, Jack. And it looks like we got a mini Locutus or a
Mhm.
Locutus Mark II. He's dressed up in the full Borg outfit, literally the full shebang, standing
Right.
there talking gibberish, Borg gibberish. And I'm thinking, I like the outfit. It's like the TNG era, but of obviously the prosthetics and whatnot is a bit better
Yeah.
than it was then, so it looked a bit better. I thought he looked pretty cool as a
Yeah.
Borg personally, girl. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It did look pretty neat.
yeah,
And I think that whole scene was great because Picard was in complete horror because he's like flashing back to when he went through all this stuff, and then he's going like, and he's getting super pissed off because he's going like, bad enough you had to put me through it, but now you put my son through it, and he's like not having this, man. He's mad.
he is pissed off, and no shits given. He is on the give no shits tour because he wants to save his son. He's got something else on the line here. We do finally see the Borg Queen, who
Yep.
is voiced by Alice Krige, who
But not played by her.
no, not played by her, but this I don't know why. Like
I don't get it either. I don't
so
understand that part.
she's messed up in one side of her face. Now, the idea they give from that is the Borg individual Borg units that they pass on the way to where the Borg Queen is are decaying. She's literally
Mhm.
cannibalizing her own Borg people to feed herself, and part of her's decayed. You could see her like there's not a hell of a lot to her now. So
Yeah.
that was a nice way of discussing or telling everyone what the current state of affairs was with the Borg. Plus, it
Right.
meant Alice Cree's face didn't need to be. I mean, the actor or the actress that played her. I don't know why they didn't get her on board because that's a
I mean,
shame.
I don't think it was a big deal because of the way the Borg Queen looked anyway. But it is a little weird. The only thing I can think of is that maybe the actress just didn't want to go under all that makeup, and I could kind of understand that. Because I'm obviously she's probably older and she's just not willing to go that far. So they just said, "Hey, no problem. Can we use your voice?" And she said, "Yeah, sure." So
Well,
it worked.
she is my favorite Borg Queen because a bit dark there. I loved her in First Contact. She was the movie Borg
Mhm.
Queen. And then Suzanne Thompson's fine, and I apologise, the lady that was in season 2 of Picard as well was also very good. No
Yeah,
qualms in them at all. It's just she was the first big motion picture Borg Queen
yeah.
we saw, and she was a real threat. And
I think
I've
she
met,
she identified more with what we remember, especially of the original crew.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and and
that's
she was
fair.
damn good at it too. So
Um, and I've met her as well. So I've met her in person
yeah,
as
you're
well,
lucky.
which is
Cool.
a claim to fame. So and she was a good dancer. I think I had
Let's see now.
several jars of
You've
me at
met
the
one
time. So
you've met one person from Trek. I've met.
oh, shut up.
Okay.
No, I met
Just
several people. Hey, I met
I'm
most.
just
Oh,
pulling your
I,
leg.
I I met most of the Voyager cast. Have you?
Other one there. Uh, Kate Mulgrew
Same.
briefly though, because it was more of a I didn't get a chance to interview her, so it was more like I only got to talk to her for like 30 seconds, and she signed my autograph on my picture. But other than the rest, I'm trying to think if I don't think I no, I don't think I really
Well,
ended up meeting the rest of the crew.
Jerry Ryan wasn't there, unfortunately. She was too busy. I was very, very sad
Yeah,
about that, for obvious reasons.
yeah,
Actress, that's why. Um,
of
anyway, moving
course,
on.
among other things.
um, yeah, no, I'm not going there.
Look, we're
So,
human. Come
so,
on.
so, so she's the Borg Queen's messed up,
Yep.
and Gray notes here that you kind of like this because it's not quite the same Borg experience we're used to. So it's nice to actually move on the Borg a little bit in their story. Yeah.
Well, the thing I thought that was great about this, in the great writing for this, is that we all know the Borg as we have known them, and that means that that when they beamed over, there should have been like hundreds of Borgs all around, and they're all running around, and you're not going to have a chance getting anywhere, et cetera, because we've experienced a lot of that in past episodes before.
Yep.
But this was great writing because when they beam over, they're not being overwhelmed by Borg. The Borg are like, some of them are skeletons, or just not able to, or they're dying.
Yep.
And so that makes all the difference in the world to how they were even able to get as far as they got, because the Borg cube, besides the fact that it was only 36% operational, it was also from the inside not very
Correct.
populated. So it was messed up. And that was perfect because I was sitting there thinking the whole time, and I know you were too, how are they going to just go up against a Borg, period, a big Borg ship and a mothership at that, which is
Yeah.
basically what I kind of looked at it as being.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And then I said, okay. So now they wrote the whole storyline of how this happened. I go, okay, now that's brilliant. Now it makes sense.
It made it fair. Made it reasonable to
Exactly.
stand a chance.
And
Um,
again, hats off to the writers, because every time you and I have come on, especially the last 4 or 5 episodes, where we keep on going, God, I hope they haven't written themselves in a corner. Oh, I think that, I don't know. Every week
yeah.
we say that, and every week they write themselves just fine. And I'm
Sometimes they
just
get
like,
close
wow,
to it.
good.
Sometimes they get close to writing themselves into that corner, and then they come away with the one line
They
to
come
fix
right
it.
out. Yep. Yep.
On.
And that just shows brilliant writing. If you can do that and keep just the pure fact that you and I kept saying that episode, as we've been filming this for all these we both kept on saying this over and over and over, just shows how good the writing was, and also shows how bad the writing was before this.
Yeah, it's a comparison thing, isn't it? It's night and
Right,
day
because we were
difference,
so
actually.
right. We were so jaded by the first 2 seasons that were crap, that we were just going like, "Oh my god," because we had no we were losing faith in the writers, and so it made it even harder to sit there and like go into this thinking like, "Well, how much better could it be if they don't do this right?" And boy, we were happily surprised
Oh
that
yeah,
everything was working out. So,
delightfully surprised.
mhm.
So after seeing messed up Borg Queen, um, Seven has a great plan. Now I love this. This is, I think it's Seven's plan. Someone tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. Um, that the line of sight that the new Starfleet protocol has for all the ships acting as one is line of sight. Which is so simple. I couldn't believe how simple it was, Gray. But literally, I thought it'd be something more complicated or fancy. But no, literally is, if they can see each other with their sensors line of sight, they have got the one collective unit. I'm not even talking about the Borg aspect of it. That's this.
Mm.
What did they call it? What was the mode they called that again? Do you recall, Gray? I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
Yeah,
I think part of the line of sight thing though wasn't I don't think it was really a Starfleet idea. I think it was a limitation of what the board could do, and it turned out to be a limitation to Starfleet's advantage, or to Seven's advantage.
yeah,
So another piece of good writing, because they were able to do all this, but it was line of sight. So as soon as that was explained,
that
then,
made
like you
sense.
said, we see Seven goes, "Oh, we have a cloak. This,
Yeah,
we can at least we can help."
still have the cloak, don't they? But we haven't forgotten about the
Yeah.
cloak. They have used it a couple of times in this season so far. And as I've said
Mhm.
to people before, I'm glad we are using that now because the Romulan Star Empire and the Treaty of Alderaan is gone now. So we should
Mhm.
see more cloaks now going forward. And it's that old Klingon bird of prey cloaks. It makes the same sound effect. Has the same visual effect, which hits the old nostalgia bone. I love that. So literally, their plan is it's bonkers. It's batshit crazy. The cook is going to fly the ship, right? The cook, the same cook, the one that's scared shitless. We're going to cloak the ship, move in amongst the fleet, appear for a moment, fire shit tons of phasers and torpedoes, and then cloak again, and then move away so they can't get line of sight. And for a little while, they are actually pulling that off. In all seriousness, they are pulling that off. They're doing a bit of damage, but it was a distraction method only because they know they've clocked on to the fact that the Enterprise D is engaging the Borg, for the want of a better phrase. So
right, because they know they're not going to be able to keep it up. But like Seven said, they just wanted to buy as much time as they could to allow Picard to some kind of success. So they did what they could. And it was great. It was great because at any moment, and it had that whole feeling throughout that scene as well as the episode. You knew that they could get blown out of the water at any time. And even the one of the officers said that they were using predictive algorithms to get a rough idea of where they would pop up or what their pattern was. And so they were getting hammered even if they were under cloak.
It's a good point. It's
as
a very
well.
good point. That is. I should mention as well before, when the Borg, the under 25s, the half assimilated crew, they were
the older adults,
the younger adults. They were all beamed to the transporter room and locked in there, so they couldn't get out. And I knew that was going to hit the fan eventually because I'm sorry, you can't keep them locked in one room for too long. Now, back at the cube, Picard tries to do what Jack could not. Jack wasn't able to, I think, physically what was built into him when he tried to shoot the Borg Queen. He couldn't even get a shot off and he dropped his phaser. Picard was like, hold my beer, no problem. Tries to take several shots. Of course the bloody Borg Queen's got a shield around her. Of course she does. And she laughs. And it's that brilliant Alice Kriege Borg Queen laugh that's just evil. I loved it, man. I was like, yes.
With all the little effects in the background going off. She's going,
it was like the Wicked Witch of the West, but the Borg
exactly.
version,
Wizard of Oz. Yeah.
So it was a nice touch.
Hey, I just whoa. This just came to my mind. No, this is gonna sound silly, but it's funny.
God, okay.
Think about this. We just said the Wicked Witch, right? What color was she?
Black. Or was she?
No.
I don't know. It's been a long time.
What color was her skin?
Oh, green.
Borg. Green.
Well, they're
Witch.
not. They don't have green skin. That's just their technology.
I know,
man.
but still, but Borg is green. So a lot of green.
You know what's going to have to be my description for the YouTube video after this when I'm putting up what happened. I'm going to have to factor in the Wizard of Oz into this description somewhere now that you've mentioned it. Hashtag Wizard of Oz. Yeah, very good point, Greg.
The Borg of Oz.
I mean, we segue, but this is a classic. This is up there, man. This needs to be YouTube short, I think now. So,
So good point.
After he fails trying to kill the Borg Queen, this is a nitpick, and this is what other pundits and commentators of YouTube channels have said as well. She says the future of the Borg isn't an assimilation, but evolution. I found this interesting, and I don't have a big problem with it, but the Borg are about assimilation. They're not about evolution, because that's not the Borg. It's not to say they can't change. Of course they can change. But when the Borg are pretty monotonous and predictable and what they're going to do, and they get what they want through assimilation. So to do it a different way, go completely against what they're about, it's a nitpick. It's not a problem. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think Gray does either, but some people mentioned that, no, this is not really how we want our Borg. But those Borg are far better than Jurati's hippie crew that she's got from the galaxy. God knows. They're probably in a hippie retreat somewhere in some, I don't know, like meditating or something.
I could be wrong, but the only... They've addressed a lot of things in season 3 that were a bit of a callback to 1 and 2, even though we hated
Terry had a lot to fix, didn't he? To be fair.
However, they never once mentioned anything to do with the Borg
God.
or Girardi at all in the season, which leads me to believe that they just basically said, I'm just forgetting that, man. Forget it. It's just not. It's not even. It didn't
Well,
even happen.
they're not the OG Borg. Of course they're not, mate, because when Jurati took our Borg away, it was like a new subspecies of the Borg. So they are not the Borg. They are Borg, but not the Borg. So I accept it. I don't like that, but as long as the Borg, and do I know something? I hope they're not completely wiped out forever. It's like Doctor Who, for Doctor Who fans out there, with the Master. It's arch nemesis. I never want him or the Daleks or the Cybermen to ever be permanently killed off, because they are the top bad guys. They come back in some way or form. So I hope the Borg, a long time from now, give them a break for a while after this, because we've done them a lot.
Yeah,
Bring them
too
back
much.
in the future, and then a different angle. So
that means that this split, if you believe it's still there, the Splinter Borg group that Girardi is actually the Smorgasborg.
the what now?
Like the Smorgasborg. Get it? I'm sorry, I just had to do it.
Apologies. I think my colleague has been on some Valium or LSD or a bit of both. I don't know.
We're just inspired by the great writing on this season, so we come up with all these.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Okay. So we'll bring our segue back in full circle.
Yep. Back to Earth.
Now, the bit I discussed before about the cook and the Titan saving the day comes to fruition, where they are doing the turning the cloak on, moving away, disengaging it, firing, re-engaging it, etc., etc. And the shots here are brilliant. It comes out, literally uncloaks, fires everything it's got in one salvo, cloaks again, and keeps doing it. And
right.
you know here as well, Ray, if you remember, but the good speech that Seven gives again, because is this the same speech he gives before they start firing? Is that the speech you're talking about?
No, this was the speech that once they finally were like done with everything, and the other what are we calling them now? The Borgettes? I don't know what we're calling them.
Oh, man.
Break out of the thing, and they destroy the cloak, so they can't they can't cloak anymore and stuff. She gives another speech, and she just tells them, "Look, we're probably dead, but this is how we're gonna do it. I mean, we're gonna go out in a blaze of glory. That's the only thing we can do."
That is the only
So
thing to do.
and she gave some great speeches, because she did a really good job, because you really felt it. You really like, wow, this is like, you felt like you were listening, or you were part of the crew.
I think they might have only slowed them down for a matter of minutes, Gray, by the sounds of it, because you literally see on screen what they done. They only got a few salvos away before the Borg were able to track them, which is not a surprise. They were getting shots on the ship even when it was still trying to cloak. But then when the cloak goes, like Gray says, because the Borg vets, I'm not calling them that, the under 25s escape, and then they take out the cloaking unit, for want of a better phrase. And
actually, that was another great bit of writing, because I didn't really think about that
first thing
at
you
the
go
time.
for.
I thought they were going to go straight to the bridge.
Well, they're all talking to each other, aren't they? So they know what the priority is.
So they stop right away and go for the cloak first, and then decide to go to the bridge. So I was like, oh, okay, that's good. Isn't the usual. Good twist.
How do you think they decide on what to do? They're a collective, so they all think the same, or they all come to the same agreement. What happens? Is it like a Borg poll? Like, let's go to the bridge. No, let's take out the cloaking device.
They're voting,
or do they
but
do
really
rock,
fast.
paper, scissors for it? Or must be a poll. Got to be a Borg poll.
Yeah, they're doing a poll, but it's so fast we can't see it. So it's like,
Borg poll. Press 1 now. Destroy the Titan. 2. Go to the bridge. So
it's like a game show.
back in the Borg cube, the Riker and Worf at this stage. Now I'm trying to remember. They had a separate angle in this, didn't they? They had to take something out. Do you remember what their
job was to get the plans for finding out where the beacon was. And then Picard split off to go take care of his son, right?
That's it.
So that's why they had to stay and do that, because that was equally as important.
It was. They find what they're looking for, but it's going to take a bit of time. Of course, it is. While they're typing away there and trying to get the plans off this device, and then finally we actually see some proper OG Borg, the ones that the Borg Queen hasn't
Still
gotten around
alive.
to. That's those Borg units were probably those Borg drones were probably the Borg Queen's dessert. She hadn't gotten around to munching on them quite yet, so there's like 2 or 3 of them, and they don't get a chance to actually get their phasers off because I wanted to see the old shields adapting again. Remember the old crappy CGI thing they used for the shields coming up and absorbing the phaser fire? I love that. It was so cheesy and tacky.
Well, if you think about it, there could be a
logical.
reason for that. Well, one, it's 36% operational, right?
They might get hit.
Number two, who's going to get the most protection out of everybody on that ship? The Queen.
Yeah.
So the Queen's got the best shields, right? So the others don't. So that's probably part of the reason right there. They're not, even though they were pretty functional, they weren't fully functional Borg because they're at a deficit.
Yeah, they probably didn't have shields. They probably didn't have energy weapons on them. They were hand to hand, and they were a bit more nimble and faster than the OG Borg that we remember, which I don't have a problem with. They should have a bit more get-go to them, to be fair.
Right.
They are tanks.
I remember, and they're fighting the older dudes now, so that these guys got to move around a little bit.
It is. Well, that's true. Hey, as I note here, both of them are taking hits, right? Several hits, and Worf takes a couple of phaser shots as well because the Borg managed to. Can't remember if they use their own phaser. They pick up a phaser. They get a couple of shots in, which I found cool. But Worf's solid, isn't he? So he takes it like a champ. But you can see them both absolutely burst at one point. Just going, God. And then I seen this bit. This was hilarious. The old phaser hiding inside the bat'leth, or the Klingon sword. It wasn't a bat'leth, was it?
Yeah. Well, I think it was a bat'leth or whatever. But the thing that was real funny was that what was it? Worf handed the bat'leth over to Riker, and Riker immediately goes to the ground with it and goes like, "God, I didn't know this thing was this heavy."
I thought he was exaggerating. It's genuinely that heavy.
Apparently. I mean, it is. You look at the size of that thing. I mean, I can understand it being, And then, of course, and like you were saying, he finds that he's going like, "What are you giving this to me for?" Right? And he's going like, "Look in the hilt," and he pulls a phaser out of it. I'm like, "Whoa, where did this come from?"
You had that the whole time.
I was like, "Damn!" And then he's, of course, they're shooting, and then that was one of the funniest scenes. He goes like, "You had a phaser hidden here all the time. Like, why didn't you just take it out and fire?" And he goes, "Because swords are fun." That was great. Worf just goes, "Swords are fun." Like, okay.
We'll do some special shout outs and nominations at the end of this and overall. Well, actually, no, we're going to save that as a special, I think. I think Gray and I were talking about coming back next week when there's no more Picard and talking about our overall
more
thoughts.
Star Trek at all till June 15th or whatever.
We've got plenty of specials to talk about, don't you worry. We'll be cranking things up here on the Trekway. So now finally, here we go. This is probably I can't talk now.
Yeah.
One of my favourite parts of this whole
Borg's getting to you. It must be
solar simulation. I'm well over 25, mate. I'm safe. Not happening. The Borg finally, the cube starts attacking Enterprise D. Now, only attacks it if it's a threat, and it's now starting to see it as a threat. Now, she is initially taking a bit of a pound in Enterprise D. The Borg cube is getting several shots in, torpedoes in as well. I've never seen Borg fire torpedoes, but we do here. And then Geordi asks Beverly. She's taken control of tactical. She has to. Right. And then literally she kicks into like warrior mode, and then you just this brilliant scene of the Enterprise flying down close to the Borg ship and taking out the phaser turrets, and phaser shots are firing left, right, and centre. Torpedoes are flying left, right, and centre. All the turrets they had to take out were taken out, and then it pans back to Beverly, and all the crew turn round and just look at Beverly like. Damn.
It was a great. Here's another thing that I like about. Wow. Again, the writing was good, right? Because we were thinking this as she's doing it, and so they reacted the way we were thinking of it as we were watching it. And they just turn around and going like, so how did you learn how to do all this? And of course, her simple answer is like, I've done a lot in 20 years.
She has, she has. She was fighting. She was in the Ilios, her own ship. She was every officer. She had to be.
Yeah.
She is arguably the most lethal Doctor we've ever had in Star Trek. It's
Yeah.
it's between her. Well, you could argue though, her. Bob Picardo was the ECM,
Somewhat, yeah.
the emergency command
Yeah.
hologram, and then
Yeah.
Dr. Julian Bashir was bloody Section 31. So we had some lethal doctors in our time. So yeah, that was fantastic. The CGI shot for that, Grey, was fantastic. It was the TNG music come on as it was flying, ducking in and out, firing torpedoes, firing phasers. Oh,
Again, perfect music, perfect timing. It's just.
There's nothing bad about that, was there? That scene, everything was
Nah.
just perfect. Yeah. So good, man. I watched that several times as well. Like the best.
Oh,
bits.
of course.
Yeah.
Rewind, rewind, rewind.
We don't have tapes, and we're still rewinding like that and make the rewind sound effects. Right now,
in fact, just a side funny note. Occasionally, when you do that and you're streaming, not always, but occasionally when you roll it back, the buffering gets messed up, and so it'll take a second because it's buffering. And that happened once, and I'm going like, "Come on, I want to see the scene again," and it's going, like, "Come on."
This is why I download episodes, so I don't need to worry about that. Anywho, right, this is another equally fantastic part of the episode, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They finally find the transmitter at the heart of the cube after Worf and Riker discern its location. And they're talking about how it's impossible to get there because it's in the heart of the Borg ship, and the Enterprise D, while it's tiny in comparison to the Borg cube, is still the fat boy, and it's not designed for that, and no one could get them through. As soon as Geordie's saying that, I'm like, I'm sorry, Data can, because he's an android. He is the best pilot for quick nanosecond adjustments, right? So I knew that right off the bat. But then Data has a moment where he's like, and then starts moving things on the control unit in front of him, and Geordie's like, "What the hell are you doing, man?" And he's like, "Listen, trust me, I've got this. I can get us through this." And he's like, "No, it's impossible." And I'm thinking, "Geordie, sorry, you're wrong. He's an android. He is better at you than this." And then Data says, "Oh, just trust me, guys. I'm listening to my gut." To which Geordie's like, "Have a bloody gut, you idiot." Like, he's just really confused, but he's got the emotions now. So I get it.
And there was one part I thought was really good when Spiner did a great job, I'll admit, too, in this whole thing. But he said, even as his new android self, he did say computationally, he said that, the chances are slim, but I'm going with my gut. And it's just like, so he did admit that it was going to be almost impossible. But at the same time, he said, I'm going with my gut. The funny thing was, Geordie hears this, he's just like, go with your gut. Like, it's almost like, are you nuts? Like, you're going to fly the whole starship on your gut? I'm like,
which you don't have.
But then it was a great scene when this was one of the few times, right? Because we're not used to his new emotions.
Yeah,
he got really mad, and he shouted everybody down. It says, "Just trust me, for God's sake."
Yeah.
And then they're just like, okay.
I mean, it wasn't quite shouting. It was voicing your opinion a bit stronger than usual.
Right, but everybody clammed up when he said that.
Yeah.
And then they just go like, oh, all right, okay.
Yeah, we'll trust you, man. And this was a navigational masterclass from our favourite robot. Literally, the music comes on again, and then the Enterprise D goes into it. I mean, why is there so many bloody gaps in a Borg ship? And that isn't because it's damaged. These were natural crevices and gaps in the ship. It's a security nightmare, Borg. Get it sorted now. Enterprise D flies in, and it's ducking in and out and weaving and going under bridges and over bridges and taking left and right and firing at the same time. And this is all Data. He's doing everything as far as I'm concerned here. He's doing it all at the same time. And you see Data moving his hands about like that.
Yeah, he's going like this.
And then crossing his hands. And when you're driving, they teach you never to cross your hands. Come on, Data. You're not learning this in pilot class. Anyway, so he's tapping away. And I'm thinking, this is bloody epic. The CGI and music, again, like the previous scene, fantastic. But this is the thing we have to come back to, Gray. Now, it's a nitpick. It's not a problem. just emphasize
Right.
this, right? Fat
Right.
Boy, Enterprise D, was never ever supposed to be that maneuverable. Now, I'm not saying it's not like a 90-year-old adult that takes forever to get down the road or something, you know.
Yeah.
It can still move about just fine. But even for Starship terms, Gray, this thing is huge. It's 40 years old. There's no
Mhm.
way, in my opinion, even now it could do this. Now, Gray's counterpoint was they didn't have the budget and the resources back in the day, which I can understand, but I don't know if you see my point at all, Gray, that it just doesn't seem very practical for Fat Boy. Like Voyager
Well,
or Defiant or something, yes, they're a lot more maneuverable.
sure.
What's your thoughts?
If you notice too, there's some precedent a little for this, and if you look back at Strange New Worlds and the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds, yes, it's not as big as the Galaxy class, but the Enterprise in Strange New Worlds is highly maneuverable compared to the original series. Because let's face it, in the original series, it went like this, it went like this, it went like this. Really? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
as beautiful as it was, and I
yeah.
love it to death, that's
It
that's
wasn't even
it.
CGI, it was a man with a stick.
Right, but now it's brought up to more normal because again, I think what we forget sometimes is there's a difference. It's a hard difference, and it is science fiction. I get it. You can be less maneuverable, but let's remember something. In space, there's not a lot of friction going on. It's not like you're sailing through the
True,
air.
true.
Okay, so little movements, can make you move pretty wildly. I mean, you can see that in normal space today.
Plus,
When
it's
you see
Data
somebody,
piloting the ship. He can make those
right,
adjustments that a human maybe couldn't, and the ship
correct,
responds to him.
right. So that's a like you said, it's a little nitpick, but it's not enough to
Oh
even
no, no,
worry.
I would rather they done what they done because it was absolutely fantastic, that scene, Gray, wasn't it? Like the previous scene with
Mhm.
Beverly, I'm like, just
Oh
keep doing
yeah,
that for the whole episode. Just like let's
that's
get in
right. Go keep
firefights.
going. Yeah, it was really good. It was very well done. You look back at it a couple times, you can see how well done it was, and it was just like it was great. I mean, they're just firing out, and everything's going the right way, and the music's going. It's like like Charge of the Light Brigade or something. It's just
Yeah,
like go. It's like going,
as I
and it was
know,
perfect.
as I note here, the end of that scene, who knew Fat Boy could be so maneuverable? No one,
Yep.
apparently. Um, right, okay. Now this bit here, I need your opinion on, Gray, and you've obviously chimed in, but space. We go back to the Armada firing on space dock, and it doesn't look like the space dock shields finally give out. Now
Right.
you don't see it getting destroyed, but I would imagine it would happen quickly after, because we discussed how powerful space docks really are, and a
Sure.
lot of people are not aware of how OP they are because they have to be. They're one of the last lines of defense. So the shields are gone. It's down to its ablative armor and whatnot to keep it going. I'd imagine it would have been taken down shortly after it had the conclusion not been what it was. But I
Right.
thought at that point, I thought before the scene jumped on from that, Gray, I thought it was going to be blown up. I thought, yeah, no chance it
Mhm.
survives at all. And you were a bit confused, as you know. I thought it was a bit unpractical for one space stock to hold up an entire planetary shield. I didn't get that either, Craig. That should have nothing to do with bloody space dock.
I mean, the only
Should be
thing I could
controlled
think
from
of.
within sight, always within sight.
Right, right. So I'm sitting there thinking, like, what wouldn't the planetary shield be controlled by people on Earth,
Yes.
and the space dock is its own thing?
Yep.
So once you saw the space dock get finally hit without the shield, you see it fall out of orbit. It goes like this, it goes like that,
I didn't
and as soon
notice
as it
that. There we
yeah,
go.
as soon as it goes like this, immediately the planetary shields like disappeared.
That's
And
a
even
big.
though the scene was cool, even though the scene was very cool and
Yeah.
everything, I just sitting there going like, "Oh, wait a minute. There shouldn't." I mean, if you're going to go on the theory that the space dock is integral to the planetary shields, right? Then you need to have, I don't know, I'm going to say 5 space docks all around the planet so that they're all working in unison to keep the shield up. And why would one take it down? Now I can make an
It's
excuse for
because
that.
there's only one space dock, mate. We've only ever seen one. That's my theory. I don't think
Right.
we've ever seen
So
more than one.
right. And so now I'm gonna take a stretch here to give him an excuse, and that is that there are more than one space dock. They don't have the budget to show them all,
Okay.
and that all those space docks, the 3 or 4 or 5 of them or whatever, are connected together to form the planetary shield. So when one goes down, the shield drops because they need to be all connected. And
True.
they weren't expecting something weird like this to happen, you know. So I gave him the excuse. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Because
there's
it's a
lots of.
plausible excuse, put it that way.
It's possible. There's many theories behind that. I generally still think to this day there's only ever one because they've never said there's more than one. We've never seen more than one on the screen at any one time. But Gray's suggestion there is solid. It's just a security bloody hazard because I'm sorry, Starfleet, your control device for the shield should be inside.
Well, going
It's
forward, I
obvious.
guess we're going to change that.
Oh yeah, the bloody well, Terry. I've got faith in Terry. He'll do that. Now,
Oh, by the way, your theory of the one we've only seen the one space dock, but if you think about it, we've only seen one shipbuilding yard too. They always show the one
because
that's
there's only
that's
what. Oh right, okay, yeah.
so there's got to be more shipbuilding yards, around. We know there is, in lore
Well,
there is.
whatever those
But we only
units are
see the
called,
one.
whatever those units are called that hold the ship, because the yard is all of it, but whatever
Right.
those individual complex things are that hold the ship, yeah, we've only ever seen one on the screen at a time. So yeah, hey, I don't think either of us are right or wrong. We don't know for sure. They've never shown us. They're both plausible ideas.
I think they probably go on that we assume a few things, which
It's
is
fine.
fine.
As science fiction
Yeah.
fans, that's fine. Now, I'm a little bit sad here. Is I've never known. Tell me if I'm wrong, Gray. In Star Trek's history, for the mighty space dock of Earth or space docks of Earth to ever be defeated and taken down. Never seen it.
Nah,
They've taken a
not that
pounding,
one.
but they've never actually been defeated because they're OP. Takes a lot. Takes a fleet to
Right.
take them down. And you'd
There
like
you
to
go.
say it falls in its size slightly, but I missed that. So
It started to drop out of orbit. You don't see it explode, but it kind of goes
well, thank
like
God,
that.
because otherwise the end would have been completely different. So yeah, it's a solid defeat, but it holds up well. It holds up for a good little long while actually against the fleet.
Sure.
So it done its job effectively. And as we touched on before, the Titan no longer has a cloak as the escaped Borg take out the generator. We see more cool Enterprise D shots as it makes it to the center, more weaving, ducking and diving, and then it literally almost pulls the handbrake and stops. And then there's that little whatever device that's called in the middle, the transmitter thing, and then it's holding there for a little while. It can't take out the transmitter beacon, as Gray puts it. Thank you for that, Gray. Without destroying the cube, which means Picard, Jack, Riker, and Worf would all be killed. And they say this on the bridge of Enterprise. Oh, what we're going to do? And it's these guys are against the whole of Starfleet, the whole of humanity, and more the
Or
whole of
galaxy
Federation.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think it's Geordi kinda asks for Beverly's permission. He turns around, Beverly, all he says, and she's obviously destroyed and distraught. But I was so proud of her as a character in that moment because she went, just nods her head while crying. She knows it has to be done. That's her son, that's her ex-lover, the father of her son, whatever. Someone she admires and respects.
Her friends.
Her friends as well. She's like, it has to be done.
Yep. And any one of them would have done the same thing.
Yes, that is very true. We can't underestimate that. It's kind of bittersweet this moment because you know for a fact they would take that shot and do what they had to do to save the galaxy, even though it's their friends and family that they're literally going to destroy potentially. And you note here, Gray, that the crew looked really upset and possibly. And they're strong, possibly, his friends would die, so would have no choice. Yep. But the acting, more than anything else, was superb in that moment.
Yeah, but the acting has to sell the writing. So the writing is good, the writing's there. If you don't have the right actors to sell the moment, it isn't going to work. And that's a tribute to the actors, the writing, and the directing, of course, which in this case, Terry did both, the writing and directing.
Yeah.
So it all jived. You could tell everybody was working as one, and so their emotions and their faces and everything sold the moment every time.
Yeah,
because it wasn't kind of like sometimes when you watch an episode of something, you go like, "Yeah, well, we know they're not going to do this, or we know they're not going to do that," and they don't, and it's typical. And I'm not saying that's a terrible thing necessarily.
Yeah.
But in this, you really did kind of think, well, they've been killing off some people. Somebody might still die, and it just sold it really well. That
It
you
was
really thought,
plausible. It
wow,
could happen.
yeah,
Yeah. Um,
definitely,
it was this kind of speech that goes on about how literally they've got once they take the shot, they've got a minute to literally get out before the whole ship literally implodes. Um, and they were going to try and get Riker and Worf out, but Riker's saying, "No, I can't leave him. I can't leave Picard." And I thought at this moment that's a bit selfish because his wife Troy is still on board. They've still got a child. It's I know what Picard means to him, but I'm thinking this moment if I'm Troy, I'm like, you're a selfish bastard. That's what I'm thinking. But what'd you make of that bit, Grade? Did you agree with it? Did you disagree
it
with it?
to be honest with you, if he had said something and then tried to leave or whatever, it would have just not seemed right. I mean, they're all family. Everything means everything to them. Any one friend dying over another, regardless, means a lot to them. So I thought the moment was fine that he wanted to stay with his friends, and that's that. And if anybody was going to survive, it would be his wife or whatever. Then get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Um, Luckily, though, of course, they have that minute or whatever, and
Yeah.
ain't gonna die today.
And it was interesting that Riker did say to Troy, I'll see you shortly." Like very, he said it in a confident kind
Yeah,
of way, like, "I'm not dying today. I'll make it." Um, and as Worf and Riker tried to meet up with Picard, they kind of jogger along, and you get that little nice line from Worf where he actually says, "There was a moment today where I was worried we might actually survive." To which Riker just gave him that cheeky little grin and smile as they jog along the platform. I like
yeah.
just that those two were brilliant in this season, man. They're just
Hmm.
ideal. Um, Now, I didn't see this coming, Gray. I want your opinion on this,
Hmm.
of course. Picard tries to get Jack out of plugged into cables everywhere, and Borg Queen warns him if you unplug them, you could do damage. And he's like, "Yeah, whatever. I've watched enough of 24 and CSI. I've just unplugged them in the right order, and it'll be fine."
Yeah.
And then he's running out of time. He's only got a minute, so he grabs one of the devices, and then she's like, "What you doing?" And he's like, "I've been running for too long," and then just jabs it in his
Stabs
neck,
in
and
his
he
neck
starts
like,
getting
oh,
assimilated. And I was like, "Oh shit, not again, man! You don't learn nothing." The things you do for your
yeah.
family. Did you see that coming, mate? I
No, I
didn't.
did not see it coming. No, I thought he was disconnecting him, and it would go from that point or whatever. But I didn't. In fact, the whole time, it really did seem like Picard was going to probably die. And we were even saying in episodes
Yep,
prior that if they had to kill somebody, it would make sense to kill
it should
him.
be him. Yeah.
Because he's an older actor, he's not coming back for everything. So blah blah blah. So I kept on thinking, and then when he jabbed himself in the neck, I'm going like, "Oh crap! You gotta be kidding me!"
You said it
and
was his
then,
only move, though. It was his only play, really, at this stage.
well, right now that I think back at it, it pretty much was his only move. He didn't know what else to do, and so the last moment, I guess he felt he could, maybe sacrifice himself in order for Jack to get out. I think that was his motive. He figured he's probably a dead gut man anyway. So what? So what the heck? He's going to take the shot, and try to get his son out of there. And if he dies, he dies.
Well,
Mm.
that is a good point, Gray, because I don't know what he thought would happen. Because when he plugs himself in, he's in the kind of Borg consciousness with his son, and he's talking to his son. I don't think he quite expected to see him there. I thought he'd plug himself in, he'd be Locutus again for his queen, and he would be let go or something like that. I don't think he fully knew what was going to happen. I don't think he was expecting to
Right.
speak to his son. Um,
Well, that's why I felt I think it was his only move. He didn't even know it was going to
yeah,
happen. He
yeah,
just figured,
he was winging
I'm
it.
just going to try it. Exactly. I'm just going to go for it, and whatever I can do to screw it up, I'll do it. And
The speech between Picard and his son Jack was brilliant. That whole
yeah.
scene was just fantastic. Jack wasn't buying it at the start. He's like, "Listen, I've been alone for so long. I feel at home here," which is kind of harrowing to hear, Gray, when you hear him say that. Like, I feel at
Mhm.
peace despite what he is doing, despite what he's become. And Picard's like, "Listen, you're not alone. You're not. For the first time, you've actually got a family. You've got me. You've got your mother. you've got the extended TNG family. You are not alone. And he gives him a hug. And obviously there's a bit more to the speech than that, but he gives him a hug, and then just Jack starts crying. And I think that's when he realised what was actually going on, and realising that, shit, the proverbial was about to hit the fan. That was a very emotional scene, that, Gray. I'm assuming you enjoyed that as well as I did.
Oh, yeah. And I think like we're coming up on the next scene, because he, even though Jack said that, he's just going to stay because he figures, I guess, maybe he can do something or whatever. So, and then Picard says, well, then I'm just going to stay with you, and we'll just die together. And I thought that was a great scene. It made total sense. Got very emotional, and they're hugging like, this is it. And the only reason I knew it wasn't quite it was because I know Jack's going to end up making it. But it's still, I thought Picard was going to die at some point. I thought I was kind of waiting for it to happen. It would look like it might happen. I'm glad it didn't, but it was good.
It was possible, yeah. It easily could have happened, to be honest with you. The killer shot comes in Enterprise D as it takes out the transmitter. Cue the 1 minute. That's never a minute and actually seems more like 5 or 10 minutes, but that's just TV and science fiction for you. As soon as the beacon's taken out, Picard is literally like, I will stay here with you, as he gives him the hug then, as Gray just touched on. And it's pretty emotional, pretty sad at this moment. And then we have Data trying to scan for them to beam them up. Now, I get deja vu of this scene, because that was Star Trek Insurrection when the ship was blown up, and the Enterprise E comes down low for the swoop to beam up Picard just before the ship blows up. So, bit of deja vu here. And then I'm thinking at this moment here, are they actually going to get their man and beam up? There's too much interference. The Enterprise... Now, this is the thing. The Enterprise D has to come back the same way it came in. So it's literally ducking in and out and trying to look for signals and beam them up at the same time. And then it's at this moment, Jack wakes up. It's only him that could wake himself up from that. Unplugs himself from that, goes up to his father, unplugs him there as well. And then
that scene is like, yes, he just walks right at Picard
and blood everywhere,
I'm sitting there going like, wait a minute,
it's in a main artery, so I'm like, come on, man, you just killed your own man. That's a good point. I've got a thing with needles, man. And then like they're kind of both holding each other, and then they look up, bright lights. And then you see the Enterprise D literally take a handbrake turn and stop right above them. And I'm thinking, right, okay, hold the phone for a minute.
That scene was so epic. I mean, I just sort of go, I definitely did not expect that. And all of a sudden, this freaking huge ship just...
yeah, and the noise it made. So the noise it made was weird, right? Okay, it was an amazing scene. Great. Let's not say anything too negative about it. It was a great scene. But, again, it's just me nitpicking. Starships don't do handbrake turns, especially fat boys. The size of the ship...
Yes, but Data's doing this.
Well, that's true. The size of the ship looked smaller than it had done before above them. It's hard to get that ratio on TV. I get it.
I just forgot something.
What did you forget?
In the scene, and I mentioned it here, where they were trying to find the crew, but they couldn't really pinpoint the crew because of, excuse me, the interference. And there was a really touching scene where Riker figures he's done. They're dead. And he just kind of thinks mentally, or he didn't. I don't think he was trying to reach out.
Found. Yeah.
Right. He wasn't trying to reach out to Deanna because the emotion was so strong. He was telling Deanna, "I'm dying. I'm dead. I love you. I'll be with our son soon." So he was already figuring that's it, finito for all of them. And the brilliant writing at that point was Deanna, because it was such an emotional scene. She instantly picked up his thought, and then as soon as she picked up her thought, boing, she pinpoints exactly where they are.
That was,
and otherwise there would have been no chance. Right now, here's the thing: I just remembered this because I remembered it, and I also read a little thing about it. She knew where they were, so there was a scene where she goes, "I know exactly where they are," and she runs right over to the helm. Right? And she sits down and starts, blah, blah, blah. And if you remember, there was the scene, whatever movie it was, where she did that and,
Generations.
and
She
crashed the
crashed the
ship.
ship. Yeah, good point. So this
So
is her
this,
moment of
so this is
redemption.
a redeeming point, exactly.
Yeah.
Redemption point. So she actually is the one, I guess.
That
I'm
done the
assuming.
handbrake turn.
Yeah, yeah. Or at the very least was, Data and her working together.
Yeah,
Whatever, whatever. And she did, and then I started thinking about it. I just answered my own question in my head. I was sitting there thinking, like, now why? Because the first person, if you don't think about it, would say, well, why do they have to beam them about, why do they have to come so close to beam them out? Just beam them
all
out
the
anyway.
interference. Data
It's
says that.
because of the interference. So they had to come really close,
Yeah.
to figure out how they could beam them aboard, and then they were able to beam them aboard. In fact, actually, they were already like taking the maneuver and getting ready to zip out right at the same time as they're beaming them aboard.
It's a good thing it wasn't in a planet's atmosphere or something, because a ship getting that close of a handbrake turn of that weight and
Oh,
mass, they'd be dead.
Yeah, ain't gonna be
Good
doing
thing
it.
it's in space.
The only good thing though is at least on the way out, right? The Borg ship's exploding, so you don't really have to look for conduits anymore. Just point it that way and go.
Well, as you say there, Gray, it is exploding, and it does explode. And I'm looking for Enterprise D the whole time. And the cool little effect,
Yeah.
you see this tiny Enterprise,
Yeah. With the
boosting
flames
away,
going out the back.
and the shields are up, and they're getting scorched. And touching this, we've talked in the past about different shields and deflectors, and deflector shields, and different terminologies and different shields, and blah blah blah. I like the shield bubble, and I'm glad they kept it the same, because see, in iterations of previous seasons of Picard and other more modern, older Star Trek shows, they've had the shields, and they're not deflectors. I'm sorry, I hate when they call them deflectors or shields. There's different styles. The ones that hug the ship, like they did at the very early days of Star Trek, like the original series in the movies, like they hug the ship.
Right.
But that's just not practical. You need a bit of a gap to absorb between the hull and the shields. But the old shield bubble is back of the Enterprise D, the TNG. I like that. It's just a little thing.
Yeah.
Little thing.
And if you think about it, it makes sense in a way, because you would basically have your primary shields would be the bubble, and then your secondary would be what you can hug the ship with, and then that's it. You're out of luck.
Always thought that was a downside in
Yeah.
the original series movies, Gray, because the Enterprise A got, is it the original Enterprise or Enterprise A, that got bashed up by the Klingons far too easily. These torpedoes are hitting the hull, and you're like, why? Is there shields? I don't see any shields. Why is it getting smacked? Oh yeah, it's because your shields are literally touching the bloody hull. The energy's got to go somewhere. It was never, so it's a nitpick. It's not a problem.
I think part of the reason was, again, cost back then, and then I think after that in the movies they kind of just kept it going because it always been that way. So they didn't really think about changing it to bubble type of stuff. But yeah, I think the bubble makes more sense.
It does. I prefer it. It's just what we're used to, I guess. And it's what we had in Voyager and Deep Space Nine as well, that era. We're just used to it. The fleet, their Borg Armada fleet, is finally free as the Queen gets smoked. So that half the face that was melted, the whole face is probably now melted now.
Yeah.
To keep it
she kind of like
symmetry there.
She got vaporized there.
You're like, she's like, no. Like the Wicked Witch of the West again getting smoked. Just in time as there's a standoff in the Titan between Seven and the older guys and the younger guys that are about to fire at each other, and that's when they're released from it, just in the nick of time. There's sweet embraces all around in Enterprise D's bridge. This is genius. This is another hilarious moment, and Worf again as at the center of it. He's battered and bruised. Like, he's had a couple of shots that would have killed a normal man.
He's holding his like ribs and stuff as he sits in the chair.
He's taking one or two phaser shots directly, man. That would be enough to kill a normal human being. He's been battered and bruised. He literally sits down in Troy's old chair for a moment as they're all victorious, and then they're kind of all sitting there smug. Geordie's sitting there all smug, and then you just hear snoring. And they're looking over and smiling. Worf's passed out and he's sleeping. And I'm thinking, this is funny, but it's also accurate. I'm sorry, you'd be passing out and sleeping as soon as you could as well, man.
Yeah, as soon as you let your guard down and the adrenaline goes, you're like...
Although Gray's word to describe this, I'm offended by it. He says cute.
Cute, not in the.
Yeah, I know.
It's cute, meaning like it was funny. It was like, boom.
I know. So yeah, that was nice to see the embraces between everyone on the ship, as we thought they might lose each other, and they almost did, to be fair. Now, that is kind of the main part of the episode. We have like 20 minutes left, as I thought we would, to mop up, wash up, and then talk about the next generation and whatnot.
I'm really glad they did, because you don't want to see
they had to.
You don't want to see 5 minutes just like, oh well, yeah.
I'd be pissed off. This is why it was an hour long. Just to add that, by the way, guys, so you're probably aware of that. So the status quo now, this is 1 year later, by the way, after, which makes sense. Beverly's now an admiral. Everyone in that bloody ship should be an admiral.
Is an admiral.
No, they're not. They're not. Geordi isn't. Data isn't. Some of them are not, and they should be. But yeah, no, Beverly's been made admiral as well. She is now in charge of medical fleet-wide, basically, of Starfleet, which she should be. She manages to remove the Borg DNA from everyone by literally reverse engineering the whole process, getting everyone back through the transporters again to remove it the same way it was put in, which is smart. And she also includes the changeling detector into it as well, because you see someone they go through the transporter and they try to leave the room. Right, you're not going anywhere, son. You're coming with me, as he tries to change shape.
Yeah.
So nice.
I'll tell you another piece of nice writing, because everybody was kind of wondering, like, and we still don't know exactly how the Borg got into some kind of agreement with the changelings, and so then you still wonder, well, there's got to be changelings around. So I'm glad they kind of addressed that right there at the end.
Oh yeah,
so that was perfect.
You have to mop up, and things like that are left. If they're left alone, they're messy, and Terry isn't messy.
Exactly.
We also see a brilliant emotional scene, very touching, between Captain Tuvok and 7 of 9.
No, I think he's admiral, actually.
No, is he?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, hey, does he deserve to be an admiral already? That's a bit far-fetched.
Yeah, but he's a Vulcan, so they have a little.
No, I think you're right, though, mate. I think you're right.
Well, remember, you choose to go into that far into Starfleet. Some captains, as we've seen in the series, never wanted to go that route. Kind of like, do you want to go into management, or do you want to stay here? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So some older captains just wanted to be captains. They could have easily been admirals.
That's a good point, mate.
So it makes sense.
A good point. So for the first gripe I've got about this, we'll just get it out the way straight away, and I think Gray and I both touch on this. Yep. Still no bloody Janeway. Now, I think was it you that discussed before, Gray, or someone else, that there was a contractual thing rumored to be that she couldn't appear in this. Now that makes no sense. There's nothing. No, this is not against you, Gray. There's nothing that would make sense in any contract to say, oh, by the way, I'm Paramount. I'm saying you can't appear in one of my shows because you're in another Star Trek show.
Yeah, but if you think about it for a second, first of all, she wasn't ill. I mean, if she was ill, they would have said something, right? The actress, I mean. So if she's not ill, and we know she wouldn't have said, "No, I'm not going to be in it. The hell with that."
Oh,
she wouldn't say that either, right? And she's always
in a heartbeat,
right? And so then there's no other reason for her not to be there except something weird contractually prevented it.
Whoever wrote the contract needs slapped about the face, Gray, because it could be something as silly as she has got 6 appearances in Star Trek in the next year or two, and they're all tied up in Prodigy. So if she were to appear in this, it'd be a separate contract with lots of money, something silly like that. It just makes no sense to have someone you've named. She's the most name-dropped admiral in the whole of bloody Star Trek Picard, 3 seasons.
I'm assuming that for whatever the reason is, even if it's stupid, and I'm sure it is stupid to us, she couldn't be in it. Okay. I think that's the reason why they did name drop her 3 or 4 times through the series, because they wanted to make sure that they got her in there somehow.
Yeah.
Even if she wasn't going to be there physically. So that's, and I'm grateful for it. I'm glad they did it. They did use her name and quote it and everything. But the last payoff, I thought for sure when we saw the scene with Tuvok sitting with 7, that Janeway was going to walk into the room, or
up at the other side of the table, or
right, or I was waiting for the shot to zoom out, and next to Tuvok would have been Janeway sitting there. I'm sitting there waiting for this to happen. Waiting, I'm saying it's got to happen. Here it comes, and I'm going,
but
what the hell?
let's not forget, guys, right? In my opinion, and some people might disagree with this, Janeway is the biggest adversary, or certainly the biggest, if not one of the biggest threats the Borg have ever taken on. You could argue it's Picard, but he was never very... Literally, Janeway and Voyager, she goes after them, literally physically chasing them, trying to take them out. And that takes cojones. You don't see Picard ever doing that. He's a different kind of threat. So for me, it makes sense to have... Like, they had Admiral Shelby in it, who was an expert against the Borg. She was killed far too easily. Didn't like that. And she is... I mean, we don't see a body, but it's 2 bloody phaser shots. She's dead. Okay. We don't see Janeway, who's one of the biggest experts. Use your assets properly, Terry. It's a nitpick. It's not bringing down the episode for me. It's just... She should have been in it, and I think Gray agrees as well. She should have been in it.
I'm not sure if we're ever going to find out the reason, but eventually we probably will. And I've got to believe that Metalis was definitely going after her to be in there. And then they just came to him and said, "Look,
we can't do it.
Contract's a contract. We can't do it." You know, so
yeah,
very weird. But then nothing surprises me. I've seen some really stupid, whacked out contracts for entertainment.
See if we ever find out from Kate Mulgrew in the future that no, they never came and asked me. I will be pissed off if it came to that. If that's
genuine. But you know she's been very quiet about this.
She has, and she's on Twitter as well. So
nothing positive, nothing negative either way. Metalis hasn't said anything. None of them have said anything. So yeah, there's some stupid contract thing that just.
Hey, she might get her own. See if she gets her own show. Star Trek Janeway. I'm signing me up.
There's lots of talk about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, because she's got Prodigy as well. So if that happens and we're saving it for that, okay, fine. So
and as long as Metalis is seeing it,
he has to do it, running it. So we almost forgot. We were talking about 2 Up before in 7 and 9. Now this always happens with bloody Starfleet, man. That you saved the galaxy, you saved the universe, but you broke the rules. We're going to have to do something about it. And it pisses me off. It happens every bloody time, Gray. And I know they've got to go by the rules, but seeing you've saved the universe, you deserve some shtick. And she does get saved from some shtick. And she's like, "Listen, I'll stop you there, Tuvok. I'm going to resign. Like, don't worry, I'm out. It's not for me." But then he says, "Well, wait a minute. Before you started breaking the rules and you went to the writing system, Captain Shaw had put in your annual appraisal, if you like, and we've got the holo recording of it there." And I'm like, "Yay, Shaw's back, but he's dead." But he's like Star Wars Ghost-esque. Play the hologram. And then he's talking about, she's stubborn, she's this and she's that. But then he's like, she's brave. She's loyal. She's just brilliant. And you see Seven's face the whole time, like, wow, I didn't see that coming. She's emotional, and he finishes off his whole recording by going, "It's my recommendation that when we get back, that she's promoted to captain as soon as possible. Captain Seven is now is official thing." And then basically Tuvok's like, want a promotion kind of thing? It's there. She's emotional. I'm emotional, man. I had a tear in my eye for that one.
And Tuvok had the great response. He goes, "Resignation denied."
yes. Because you can do that. I'm not taking your resignation. That was really smart, that scene, wasn't it, mate? I'm assuming you loved that as well.
By the way, just one more time, when he pulled out the little hologram thing in his hand before we saw Shaw pop out of it, right? I then again thought that the hologram was going to be Janeway popping up saying that blah 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 something, or and make her a captain. That's exactly what I thought was going to happen. I said, okay, you didn't have the real Kate Mulgrew there at the shot, so how else can you get her in? And when he brought this holo thing out, I'm going like, yeah, that's it. Janeway's going to pop out of that thing. And as soon as she didn't pop out, I went, damn. But I don't want people to think that we didn't love the scene. The scene was epic. It was great, done perfectly. We loved it. It's just that we wanted to see Janeway, and
that would have been. That was annoying, safe to say.
But it didn't take anything away from the scene. The scene was absolutely fabulous.
It's just a nitpick bugbear of ours. Yep. So sweeping up with the rest of the characters, we don't like Raffi, but we have to just briefly mention her and then move on to the good stuff.
I'm warming up to her.
She's a good officer. We just don't like what they've done with her in the series. That's the problem. or she's a great actress as well, should I say. It's just they need to do more with her. She's able to finally see her grandkid as well, because they're kind of warm to the idea, and she is kind of just saved the galaxy kind of thing. So yeah, you'd like to see your granddaughter. It's the least we can do. Worf comes in and tells her how Raffaella, don't be so hard on yourself. You're a great grandmother, great person, all this good stuff. And then he gives her a hug. Worf hates hugs. He gives her a hug. I was like, a very awkward hug, because it's still Worf, and she's getting like, she was like, wow, okay, didn't see that come. That was nice. That was sweet, Gray.
Well, that's the new Worf. So,
the new Worf. The past was Worf.
Sort of.
We have
the past is worse, but don't cross that line right there.
We have Deanna and Riker wrap up, but we have Deanna talking to Data, because he's got emotions now. Apparently, you get the gist that he's there every day speaking to her, and he's well over his appointments every bloody time, and she's getting fed up with it in a kind of good way. He leaves the room, and she's like, tomorrow, and he's like, tomorrow, and she's like, yeah. He leaves. His face like... He leaves. Riker comes in, and tell me if I got this bit right. I don't know if I misheard this. Did Riker turn around to Deanna and go, "Is he still batshit?" He did say that,
and and I wasn't sure he said that, but whenever here's a little trick you can do because there's a couple times, and we've all done this before.
Sometimes
we watch a TV show, and for God's sakes, we can't tell what they're saying, even if we turn the volume up, we can't figure it out. Yeah, instantly go to subtitles, turn it on, roll the scene back. And there it is. And
that is batshit, yeah.
He did say it.
Deanna pushes him like, come on, don't say that. That was funny. That was a nice little moment. Yeah, it was batshit crazy.
But the thing that was so good about, again, another piece of good writing, because you got to figure out that he's like, essentially with his emotions now, he's a child. And so he's learning all the emotions in fast mode. Right. And he doesn't know how to deal with this all. So Deanna's getting fed up, because it's like having to raise a child all over again.
It kind of is,
Data's sitting there talking to her about simple little stupid things that we take for granted, and she has to deal with it because he doesn't know how to deal with it. But that's exactly how I see how she would be getting. She loves it and she'll do it, and she loves him and she will do it. But at the same time, she's like, oh shit,
yeah,
I gotta keep this going.
Yeah, it was funny. It was nice way to wrap that up. That scene between them. We do have the 1 year later shot, or actually comes now rather than a few months ago, like I discussed. But you see 1 year later. I don't know why 1 year later for this, because you have a great scene on the bridge of the Enterprise D, Riker, Picard, and Geordi, or maybe it was before the 1 year. It probably was logically. Where it's the usual, she served as well again, and then it's the Geordi talking to the computer one last time, Enterprise D kind of deactivate kind of thing, or decommit, whatever phrase they used, which was a bit kind of somber, because then the lights kind of go down on the bridge, and I'm kind of happy, but I'm happy sad, because it was nice to see it back again, And
by the way, there was one nice little, and this was Frakes, and again to the writing. There was a nice little tribute to Majel Barrett, who was the voice for the original computer all through most of Star Trek. And Riker says, "I missed that voice."
Yeah, we all
on
do.
his way out.
We all do.
So it was so nice. It was a nice little tribute to Majel.
Yeah, we all like that. It's a smart. See, little things like that. One little tiny lines of dialogue can make or break episodes sometimes, especially on Star Trek. We then catch up with Jack, Picard, and Beverly. They're in a shuttle, and it looks like Jack's in Starfleet. He's on an accelerated path, no academy. But then again, I'm not surprised because of who his parents are and how good he is actually without that. So they've been able to bypass that, and he's going to get his first posting. But Gray, he looks nervous as hell, and they're like, chill. Picard's like, listen, I was like you, I was a bit nervous and all that. And he's like, no, I'm not nervous for me. I'm nervous for you. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, look out the window. Look at that. And then here we go. Right. I'll go first, Gray, and then give me your input, please, mate, of course. The Titan A, with special naming privileges like they done with Sao Paulo to Defiant, has been renamed. Guess what they renamed it to? NCC 1701G. the Titan A, not a different ship, the Titan A. And that's why Jack is nervous. He's like, I'm nervous for you. Now, it was a sweet moment in Picard's face where he is like, oh my God, that was nice to see. Of course it is. You get the Star Trek music on. Now, I'm glad we saw the Enterprise G and the F. That's right. The Next Generation should be shown. Seven's the captain. She should be. I have no problems with that. Rafi's a number one. Your man Jack is an ensign, but he's like a special advisor to 7 and 9, which is a bullshit rank. It's just mates, jobs for the boys. Well, I'm not complaining about that. That's fine. It's funny. It just doesn't make sense. Well, he kind of tries to sit in the chair and like, Seven's get out. You know, yeah. That was amusing. So this ship now, the Titan is safe to say it's a legendary name now in Star Trek after what it's done and what it's achieved. The original Titan with Riker, then the Titan A, and then the refit of the Titan, well, from the Titan to the Titan A. So you don't rename a legend, a classic ship, 1. 2, the Enterprise should always be the biggest, best, or not biggest, the best class of starship they've got. Fresh paint, literally off the drawing board or the Starfleet, whatever. It doesn't need to always be the flagship, because there's been more than one Enterprise that's not been the flagship of the Federation at any given time. Usually is the flagship, more often than it's not, but it's not always. But the Titan A is so under-armoured, what am I trying to say here, Gray? It's not powerful enough, is what I'm trying to say. It was getting
it's not in the class of like the Odyssey class F. It's not
or Sovereign, or any bloody class before it. It's spanked by the Shrike, and the Shrike is a powerful ship, but it gets spanked far too easily. Now, of course, it could have been souped up. It could have had the latest. It's 1 year later, so logically, it could have had the latest state-of-the-art upgrades, which makes sense. And if that is the case, I'll buy it and accept it. But Terry, we've just discussed.
Nobody said anything.
How many times we've talked about one line makes or breaks an episode. It's not broken this episode, far from it. But if you'd mentioned that, I would have bought it and accepted it. I might have not been chuffed with it and really excited. Like, I want see a new class of ship. But it made sense, and it is a Constitution class, kind of full circle, Neon Constitution. Wasn't happy with that, great, and I'm not the only one. I went onto Twitter after. There's plenty of people that are like, nah, I'm sorry, Terry. No, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. So sorry for my rant, mate. I want your opinion on it. Go.
Well, when I first saw the scene, and I started to catch on right away that this probably is going to be the next Enterprise. So before it really happened, you knew it, right? So I also knew at that point that even though I was hoping for a different class ship, I was pretty sure it was going to end up being the Titan. So I decided that for that moment, I just got caught up in the moment and just enjoyed it, because it was a very powerful scene, and it was very well done, and it was very poignant, and being able to rename it and have Picard think of it that way. And also having our new generation that we got introduced to that we love, and a little mix of the old with 7 being captain and being on a proper ship that's called Enterprise. So all that was like great. And then if I have to back off for a second and do the nitpick, and again, I always try to, as you and I both do, we both tell everybody, don't think that we're trying to knock the episode out of the water. We're not. It's just that I also agree that it would have been just that much nicer if they had come up over the little horizon there and they had seen a ship that was more like Odyssey class, or
a new class.
Don't know, some kind of new class, maybe, right? That would have been a little extra. That would have been really good, but they didn't. So, but then again, like Trev just said, and we had both talked about it before we started recording this. We both said that, well, yeah, they should have just said, like, okay, well, it's been a year, and we've put some new designs in here. We put a blade of armor on the ship. We put quantum torpedoes aboard, whatever. It would have taken just a line or two to say that on the new refitted Titan, up to standards, something, I don't know. Yeah. And they didn't do that. And it's just kind of like, I don't know whether they figured we would just assume it, or whether they thought it wasn't really necessary. That's okay, whatever. It still was a great scene, but it would have been nice if they had either done one or the other. Had the bigger whatever ship, or put the line in that the ship has been souped up, and
Yeah,
stuff. So
it's
now, if we ever see Legacy, which we hope that we do, they could easily bring it up right at that point.
better.
Um, I would hope so. I mean,
It, they've done this naming in honor of Picard and his crew. It's almost like a thank you
mhm.
for what you've done. They mentioned that this is in honor of you guys, basically, and it is. I mean, it's
Right.
fair play. They deserve that. Um, Seven being captain of the Enterprise, I both love and hate. I don't think she's
Mm,
earned that right yet.
yeah, I kind of wondered that too.
This is why, Gray, if they'd made Seven captain of the Titan A and then had a new captain for the Enterprise G separately, that would have been ideal. You know?
You know what? I think you're right, but then again, as it's hard. I think that even though that you and I think that would have been the logical move, okay, and it probably makes sense. I think they decided that they were gonna, as I always say, I like to throw in a little poetic license here and mess it up a little because it's really important that if they do a Star Trek Legacy, and as Jack said, it is all in the name sometimes, then
Yeah.
you need to go forward into Legacy with an Enterprise because it's been too long not having an Enterprise out there in a Star Trek series. Because if you think about it, Discovery, which is not one of my favorite shows, but whatever, you didn't get an Enterprise.
Mm.
Okay. Strange New Worlds, yes, you did get an Enterprise, which is very intelligent. They did it that way. However, it is the Enterprise of the past. Nothing wrong with it. At least we get an Enterprise, right?
Mm.
Which is wonderful. But when you want to address the future of now, the Star Trek, 25th century, there was no new Enterprise. And we always saw was a brief glimpse of the F, and that was it. So you almost have to have an Enterprise going into a new series. You have to.
We hadn't seen Enterprise E since
The
Star
movie.
Trek, the last Star Trek movie, so that was a long time, man. Really long time.
Yeah.
The thing is, I'm really disappointed with Terry here, and I still love the guy, he's still God, but I'm just like, he thinks so much like we do, like diehard Trekkies, Gray,
Mhm.
right? He must have
Yeah.
thought there'll be a lot of people that don't like this, and I know he would have thought this because he thinks the way we do. I'm like, how
Right.
you didn't see this coming, Terry? There's very much mixed emotions in this right now in
Mhm.
the Twitter sphere, right? People are loving it, some people are hating it. I'm hating it. I think Gray's seen both sides of the divide. He's been a good devil's advocate here. So we'll see what happens with it. But I mean, anyway, like moving because we don't want to delve in that too long. It was just something that
Yeah.
pissed me off about this. It's the only mistake he's made in the whole season for me.
Mhm.
As we said, Seven's the captain, Rafi's the number one, Jack is the ensign's special counselor. Now this was funny. She's in the chair, Captain Seven. It's got a nice ring to it. And then there's this whole speech between her and Jack about legacy, pun intended, and your opening line, how's it going to start? How's it going to begin? It's important. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I want to hear what it bloody is as well. I was going to be something like Borg-esque or something, you know? And then she's about to open her mouth and say it, and then it just pans to the Enterprise going into warp. And I'm like, you bastards,
I know.
man.
And I thought that was pretty cool. Metalis did that to keep us wondering because
Uh,
now you virtually have to have a legacy to see what. And she did open her mouth. She goes like this,
you
and
just,
then it's
yeah, split, they change it like that,
that
yeah.
was it. And then the ship took off. Like, oh damn, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we do see Legacy. It sets it up perfectly for it. So I really hope that
My,
does come
you know,
about.
I could be wrong, but my feeling is a lot of people were bugging the hell out of Metalis about, we're going to see a legacy. We're going to see a legacy, and he had to come out and flat out say there is no legacy in greenlit or in production.
Which is accurate.
And I think he had to say that because the finale still had not been out. Now that the finale is out, give me a break. The whole thing screams legacy's coming. I mean,
He's got to be
in
careful though,
every
mate.
way.
He's got to be careful. He can say he wants to do it, but he can't be too pushy with Paramount brass because you don't want to disrespect him. He can say I'd like to do it, but
Yeah,
we'll see what happens if they greenlight it
right,
and
of
that kind
course.
of thing. So
But I mean, look at the way it all came about. I mean, there is no way you can't say in more scenes than one at the end of that finale that it just screams
Well,
Legacy, legacy,
we
legacy,
know a
legacy.
lot about this crew already. The bridge crew, we kind of mostly all love them now. We feel like we know them,
Right.
and I generally feel that about most of them, which I never did with Discovery. I'm still a bit funny about Strange
Yeah.
New Worlds and that, so it makes sense to do it. Now, we literally end this episode with full circle as
Yep.
TNG the series ended. We've then got Picard and the TNG crew round a table playing poker, because the thing, the ongoing trope in TNG
Well,
the
wait.
series.
Remember that just before that, they're banging back some drinks.
Well, they are drinking as well, yeah, but they're loosening up, man.
Like,
Synthahol has not been mentioned at all in new Star Trek, which is great. Alcohol still exists in the 25th century, so they're all
yeah.
knocking back some drinks, playing poker. The ongoing trope with Picard and TNG was he never played poker with them because he was a captain. He had to kind of stay back. I can't be your friend as such. At the end of TNG, he goes and plays poker with them, and they were like, "Wow, bit surprised."
He
by
holds
that.
up the ace of spades. Remember? He
Yeah,
holds up the card. Ace of spades. I go, oh,
A for Admiral.
let's go.
And it's a nice scene because he's basically cleaning the house, and Data's just gobsmacked, and they're all chuckling and smiling, laughing, and being like friends. And you have a couple of minutes of this. The camera's above them, watching them all
Oh
play.
yeah, I thought that was brilliant. The credits come up and
credits
some
roll.
of the end music,
Yeah,
and they just took a camera, just kept on spiraling it around slowly like this, and moving up so you could see all of them just having a blast playing poker.
And the thing is, it was such a beautiful scene because these guys are best friends in real life. Patrick Stewart's talked about this. He loves these guys. He's loved these guys for a long time. They're like his family. This wasn't acting for them. I think this was them just being them, which is the best thing you can have as an actor when it's easy, it's effortless, and it was a perfect.
There's definitely
way to
some
end
of that.
it.
There's no doubt. I mean, you can see that. Plus, let's put it this way, and sometimes you don't see this, except for people like me that get older. When you get older and you still have friends that long, your bond usually grows a lot more.
Of course it does.
And stuff. So it makes all sense in the world when you start seeing, all the old fogies together, because it just shows that the bond's been there for a long time.
Is that a saying in America, old fogey? I thought that was a Scottish thing. Wow. Have you just been listening to me for too long?
No. That's been around for a while.
Old fogey. I do like that saying myself, yeah.
I remember we picked up many types of languages over the years over here.
I say coffin dodger. It's a bit grimmer, that one. That's my joke. That was my grandfather's title for it, by the way. He called old people coffin dodgers, which okay. It's very crude, but it's hilarious at the same time. So, great notes here after. He needs some Romulan ale after this finale. I agree, but I probably needed 2 bottles after episode 9 because that was even more brilliant.
And by the way, just a little note, and it was, you could see it if you go back on it. When you're watching the scene at the poker table, they all have their own drinks in front of them. And so I was trying to look at the drinks, right? I was just curious. Sure enough, and I'm pretty sure it was Deanna Troi. I'm almost positive. She had a glass of Romulan ale, the blue liquid, and she was drinking it.
Are you
Hey,
why
go back
not?
and look at it. It's there.
Why not?
And then the other glasses you're trying to, I got to freeze the scene and see if I can see anything else.
Yeah.
For sure, I saw like whiskey, stuff like that. But I didn't really take a close enough look at the other drinks. But you couldn't miss the Romulan ale because the damn stuff's blue.
Well, I don't blame them, Gray. I don't think any of them are active. Any of those officers are fully active Starfleet officers these days. So why not? They're off duty, or they're retired.
Yeah. Oh no, I thought it was great. I like that even that you didn't have to do that. But those are the things that Metalis has done all the way through the episode. He keeps dropping these nice little things here and there. Unless you're watching it, unless you see it, or unless you go back and watch again, you're gonna miss this stuff.
This is
true.
true.
Just little things like a glass of Romulan ale. There it is.
We'll talk about the little. It's a little extra. It's not even a post or a mid scene, but we'll talk about it briefly because it's been a really long episode, and I knew it would be because it was the finale. So hopefully you don't mind too much. The small scene at the very end is essentially setting up Legacy, where you see I still can't get used to calling it Enterprise. The Titan now.
Just take it all in. Come on,
sitting by a star, just chilling, and you see Jack in his quarters. He's basically unpacking his stuff, And then he hears a familiar voice, turns around, it's John Delancey is Q. And I'm like, you're dead, man. Go away. I love you, but you're dead. Just stop it already. And it's the whole speech of, actually, oh, man told me you're dead. And he's like, stop thinking in such a linear human aspect. It's probably John Delancey from an earlier timeline, but wisely consoled. A nitpick for me, mate. I don't think he should have went with this. He's basically saying, your father's judgment time is over, humanity's safe, but now it's your turn. And he's like, all right, okay. I both liked and disliked this scene, Gray. I was like, it's nice to see John Delancey because he's brilliant, but just let that angle go now, I'm thinking. Just leave it be. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I thought I liked it. I'm not going to say I disliked it.
Yeah.
What I would say is that it wasn't necessary. Not saying that I didn't mind it being in, fine. It was actually a cool scene and everything, but it didn't have to be there, in my opinion. But since they did do it, it was a strong connection again by hooking the new generation to the last generation via Q, because why? Q was in the very first episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. And now Q is in the very last episode
Makes sense.
of The Next Generation. So bookends. And so now that doesn't mean that Q is going to control the entire season of Legacy. It just means that
he's around.
He's around. He might pop up, or whatever. And so now, like I said before, if you didn't think prior to that scene, if you didn't feel like, oh, Legacy, because they were just dropping the hints everywhere. Now at the very end, this last credit scene, oh my God. I mean, it's like, if they don't make Legacy, they're freaking fools.
Well, they can only ever have 2 live-action Star Trek shows on air at any given time, Paramount pretty much said, just to budget constraints and whatnot. So once one drops, and it might be Strange New Worlds, I hope it's not, but after they get a few scenes out of that, they might bring this back in the future. I mean, of course, we'll talk about that next week. We'll come back and do an overall review special of it. So we didn't hate that scene. We just didn't make a lot of sense. It was like, why, essentially? So I'm thinking, Greg, when we do our overall review of the season next week, we'll save our overall scores for the season, if you're okay with that. But obviously, for this episode, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I had a 9.5, but it's down to 9. The Enterprise G thing, I'm sorry, man. I don't know if I'll ever get used to it until they explain it in Legacy, potentially. I'm not a fan. I'm not happy with that. That brought it down a little bit for me. But 9 out of 10 is nothing to be ashamed of. You were never going to beat episode 9. I don't see how you could have. They should have maybe saved that kind of awesomeness to the finale, actually, because Metalis peaked a little bit too soon. But it was a brilliant.
But that way he got you to watch the last.
Well, of course he did, but that was also going to happen. It was a brilliant conclusion. It summed everything up perfectly, but we have a couple of nitpicks, like Jamie not being in it, Enterprise G, the ship not being suitable. And Gray, I think you were kind of thinking similar things here. Certainly, you've got similar kind of reasons. So,
I mean, I went
you gave it
slightly
9.5,
more,
didn't you?
9.5 out of 10, only because I really wanted to go 10, but I was going like, well, yeah, but they already set the precedent for
it isn't perfect.
Episode.
Almost.
And then I couldn't go 10 for the same reasons that you gave. Probably more so Janeway than even Enterprise G, but those are the 2 reasons. Yeah, I just couldn't do all the way.
Of course.
And and again,
nothing to be ashamed
not
about.
To slight anything at all. It's I mean, I think what we did do, I was talking to Trevor off the air, and we were saying that we should really give the overall season a rating, trying to take it all into one big view, and what do we think about it? And I went along at 9.5 out of 10. I can't see how I could go any less than that.
We're not saving that for next week then.
No, let's just go for it. I mean, the season's over now, but we'll talk about other stuff.
Yeah, I'm 9.5 as well.
Right. Overall. I mean, you could almost say like, well, how could you do that? Because some episodes you might have been thinking 8.
Almost perfection.
Right, but if you just roll into one big ball and just take a look at the whole thing, I can't see how you could go less than 9.5.
Certainly 9 would be the bare minimum, considering how well it's done.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, no, hey, I'm the same as Greg. We often think very alike in this respect, and I'm 9.5 out of 10 for the whole season as well. It's fantastic. They've done really well. Well, obviously, we'll get into it a bit more next week. I'm conscious that this is a really long episode, and hopefully you can watch it in a couple of installments. But I mean, of course, by all means, we love of course we love subs and likes and thumbs up and all that, but I like comments more than anything else. Gray never lets me down. I always prefer, I don't really like asking for subs because I don't think it actually equates to that. I actually like people's input. I like comments and what you like and dislike. Do you like the longer format, the raw kind of break it down kind of format? Tell us what you like, dislike, what you maybe want to see in the future from Strange New Worlds when it comes out. We'll have plenty of specials coming out over the next several weeks. Don't worry about that. I'm looking to try and kind of improve things. Maybe try and
we got a list about this long of stuff we want to talk about.
Maybe some more regular things as well. I might even venture into shorts, YouTube shorts. It's not warm enough quite yet for that in Scotland. But yeah, the usual quick call to arms, of course. You don't want to watch us, as well as the YouTubes and the podcasts. We are on Audible platforms, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And catch us at the Trekway as well on the Twitter. And Gray's done a show with him just the other day. I haven't forgotten your name, man. Gray's Green Room was on just 2 days ago, actually. We recorded a special, and that's out at Gray's Green Room on the YouTubes, the podcasts, wherever you listen to that, and on the Twitter at Gray's Green Room. And because we love podcasts so much, we do a gaming podcast with our friend Nick every Thursday, and you can literally find him pretty much the same places at Extreme PC YouTube. UK. He's doing a big thing with YouTube as well, but we're on that if you like gaming. So, but thank you so much for being with me, those people. I appreciate it. It's an hour 50, but it's a finale. I hope you can understand that.
Yeah, there's no way not to do it.
Yeah,
episode was longer. We had to be longer.
Exactly. We will be back next week, of course. We'll wrap up the whole season, what we liked, what we disliked, see where we go. If you've got any questions you want us to cover for next week, put them below and we'll discuss them. No problem. In the future, we might even do a couple of lives. I don't think we're at that stage yet, but I'd like to do that maybe in the future. But yeah, I guess thank you, Gray, for sticking along for this time. And until next week, do your thing, Gray.
Live long and prosper.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.